Are we on? We are live on Facebook. Hello everybody, my name's Tom DeLonge, and over here you have Luis Elizondo, but we go by Lou. Welcome.
Bob, Bill, Joe, I'm not sensitive.
Well, AJ couldn't be here today, the author, but the hurricane is ravaging the East Coast, but he will be calling in. I wanted to say thank you for everyone that is slowly coming on and tuning in to our little live event. We're really excited to talk about the Secret Machines book, the second one. This is a big deal for us because this is kind of our flagship, what we call a franchise, which is a story that we hope to add on to it. And it's like wine, it gets better over time. But AJ will call in, we'll talk to him a little bit. The other thing that's really cool about this that we haven't done before is this is kind of an opportunity for you just to talk freely. I think a lot of people are like, you know, they want to get to me and they want to talk to me about the subject of UFOs, but this is almost as good as it can get for a lot of people out there to talk to a guy from the DoD about this stuff. And you do have live questions coming in.
We do.
So,
yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is my hello to you guys. I think we're going to be on this live feed. I think it only goes for, it's like something like 94 hours straight. No food, no bathroom breaks.
Marathon.
It's a marathon. But we will be here for a little bit. And that is my greeting. So we have a little sheet here. So I just did the greeting part.
Yes.
What's the next part?
So thank you all for being here. I'm Lou, and I'm going to be trying to keep Tom on target with a nice little agenda we have. I'll be doing my best. Let's start with, first of all, where they can find this signed book of yours.
Yeah, so we're doing this with PremierCollectibles.com. Matt and Eric have been kind enough to come out here and set all this up for us. They have been wonderful. I had to go out to the tropics for a week with Matt and Eric, and we lived together, we slept together, we ate together. It was an incredible time to really understand how they wanted this event to unfold. It was a little bit cumbersome. I thought they could have just sent me an email, but I did it nonetheless. But they're great guys. So what we do here is we're gonna be signing all these books, and they're available PremierCollectibles.com, and which is a great thing because we're doing a signing here at To the Stars later, but obviously not everyone can make that. It's kind of lame if you don't come out to it. Some people did fly from London, I heard. So if you're in London and you didn't fly out, you're kind of lazy. But I just met a very nice girl that drove out from Colorado. How's this? Because we're going to be getting into some consciousness stuff. You know, serendipity is one of these things that people always talk about. It's tied to it. This girl has this really cool art project she's working on. Her name is Janae, and yes, I met her at a coffee shop. And she drove from Colorado out here, not to get anything signed, but just to stand in the line and hand me a little proposal about this art project.
Wow.
I happened to be at the coffee shop just sitting there reading the news, and she happened to be there. And so, I hope the trip became worth it for her at that point. I got it. I read the proposal. It's really cool what she's doing. So there's a little shout out, and I pass it off to the right people. But,
thank you, Janae.
Yeah, it's good. Eat. What does this mean? Does it mean eat? I gotta start signing the books. No, I'm just
so we're supposed to keep you on track here,
Soup.
Tom. So let's get you started. And in the meantime, while we start signing some of these books, why don't you tell us a little bit what inspired you to write this book?
Well, as you know, by the way, there are trains that pass by, so you might hear a train every once in a while.
Is that what inspired you, a train?
A train inspired me. Well, you know, a lot of people ask me where I got really excited about the subject of UFOs and when that started with me. It was junior high, and I don't know why. Just one day wanted to go out and start reading about this stuff and learn about this stuff. But the more you get into it, as you know, more than it brings in physics, it brings in ancient, subjects like religion and, mankind's long controversial history on this earth, and it brings in politics, and it brings in biology and cosmology. And so if you start to get into UFOs a little bit, you start to realize it's like kind of a never-ending rabbit hole. So when we started To the Stars and I wanted to get into filmmaking, I felt like this was the story that was never told. We've seen all the UFO movies. I mean, you've seen Close Encounters, and that's probably the best one. But usually they do like the Independence Day kind of stuff, and no one really treats the subject the way the way I think it really is, you know. We've all read, the stories about, we know like Commander Fravor had the intercept with the UFO off the event with the Nimitz.
Right.
This book was like, not this book, but this whole story was really an attempt to put those kind of moments and make them really palpable and real for people. Because I don't think people think of that kind of stuff. They think of like lights in the sky, or they think of, I don't know, just the weirder kind of stuff, or like UFOs blowing up the White House or something. But they never really think about what it's really like, which is more unnerving, I think, because there's so much more mystery around it, that something's moving 30, 40, 80,000 miles an hour, and we send out a pilot that has to see it up close. And
right.
I thought that would be cool.
Well, so that leads to the next obvious question. When did you first really start getting interested in this topic?
Well, the interest hardcore came with, back when we were touring in the van, we didn't have smartphones. So, we had to read, which is really, it was remember back in the day.
What's that?
Yeah. So we had to buy books, and we would just sit in the van for like 10-hour trips every single day, and all you do is just you read, because you're not on the internet in any kind of way. So I started reading some books, and I remember the first book I read was called, what was it? I think it was called Above Top Secret, and I think it was just a chronological order of things that happened with UFOs since it had to have been since World War II, and it went through all the NASA stuff, and went through a bunch of stuff in the Vietnam War, and went through a bunch of stuff that happened in the 80s, and you start to realize, wow, this isn't really, I mean, it's esoteric, but it's not really as esoteric when you read it that way. When you're reading stuff that happened to pilots and trained observers and astronauts and governments of the world, at that moment, I remember too, it was like my band's worst nightmare, because then I started talking about it all the time in the van, and Mark and Travis would be like, or at the time it was Scott, but they would just be like, dude, you gotta stop talking about fairy tales and like weird wizards and ghosts, because that's what it sounds like,
Sure.
But that was the beginning of my obsession, I think.
So, I got to ask then, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know, how did you go from reading something in the back of a van, going to gigs and touring, to putting together a group of individuals, like-minded individuals, a lot with government backgrounds, to pursue this in a very serious way? There's a big difference between reading a book that you find on a shelf or in a library and creating a company and devoting your life,
right,
and to doing something like this. How did that occur, and what inspired that?
I have always kind of loved.
While you're signing, by the way.
I think you keep handing me books. You're just gonna get up and see each other. Upsetting the apple cart has always kind of been in my DNA. Mm-hmm. I'm a punker first and foremost. I think for you would probably say I'm a spy first and foremost, or a soldier, or a patriot,
or an insurgent.
Yeah. But for me, I punk rock wasn't just about a music thing. It was really about pressing up against the status quo. And I think the people that were really large, really big Blink fans, the thing with a band like that, it's not really just about the songs. It's about the ethos and the culture, and the idea that we thought a certain way about the world. And so that, we would sing really fast, happy songs, but that was just a way to try and break out of broken families and stuff. But it's always been in my DNA to try to upset the apple cart a little bit. And I remember the only two things in my life I've been really passionate about were music and this subject. So after the band, had its big ride, and it's still going, I kind of just realized I was, when I had my 40th birthday, I was like, man, I gotta really attack something with the subject if I want to do anything about it, if I want to be involved with it, if I want to, have any kind of mark on that, because I already knew it was real. I already knew, how important the subject was. But I was really, having kids too, you're kind of thinking about, man, this world's a pretty fucked up place. And what's a subject that can really change how people think about themselves, how people can change how they think about each other? What's a subject that could bring in a radical technology that can revolutionize everything? There's no other subject I can think of that touches so many of the sciences and the arts than this. So I made a hardcore decision that this is my chance to do something about it. So when we started the Secret Machines book, though, to be honest, I was really scared of people like you. So what happened was, I was like, fuck, if I come out with this first book and I don't if I don't go and ask for permission, so to speak, I didn't want a lot of important people in a lot of important places misunderstanding that I was an advocate, and that I understand that there's a lot that we still need to know, and it gets tricky. And so at that moment I said I should use the little bit of notoriety I got, and I should try to meet people like yourself. But it was funny because I wasn't allowed to meet you. I was told
and I definitely wasn't allowed to meet you.
Yeah, I could see. But you know, so I think what happened was I just spent a really long time knocking on doors, you know, and some really kind people that really listened to me, you know. At first was, this isn't real, but I have someone I want you to talk to.
Sure.
You know, and that just went longer and longer. And next thing you know, I was surrounded by some heavy hitters, you know.
Well, as you continue to sign these, one of the things I find so fascinating, Tom, is that I think a lot of folks out there in the audience would agree that you go and you succeed at pursuing your dream in the entertainment business and as a rock and roller, only to then chase a new dream that probably some people thought, frankly, this guy's got to be crazy for leaving a successful business to go pursue something else now. And yet, I would argue that, in essence, it's really that spirit, being a catalyst, that has allowed us to now take a topic that was once considered very taboo, a lot of stigma associated with it, and actually be able to have a conversation about it, a rational conversation.
Well, let me ask you, because the people watching are way more interested in the guy that ran the government's UFO program than what Tom thinks about it. Let me ask you, know intimately, and so much what you know is still classified that none of us can ever know. But you know the stigma attached to this because you dealt with it. How has it changed since all this? Like, to you and to your because you're still so tied into the government with people you know, and like,
sure.
How has it changed that you've seen?
Well, I will admittedly say I didn't change it. Actually, you're the guys that changed it, and that is, you know, I did this, and my colleagues and I did this day in, day out for damn near a decade, and we couldn't even get people in our own building to have a conversation, and that's why I said before, as a catalyst, people probably wondering how it is you could leave a successful business model behind and pursuing your dreams as a rock and roller for this. And had you not have done it this way, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. So don't look now, but we're having this conversation because of things like this, that you took the time to have a conversation about. Whether you do it as a novel, or you do it as fiction, nonfiction. I think that's something that I think that was you.
Well, so. but you can definitely say, though, that now you have colleagues in all different agencies of the government that talk about this a little bit different now, right?
In part because of what you did. Yeah, I think so.
I think we should definitely really give me as much credit as possible. I'm just saying, I love it, and I'll take it, and I'll just say no. But what Lou's saying here, and he's so kind, is he's trying to act as though it really was a lot of me, but the biggest risk out of everyone was you. The biggest risk. And I remember how angry I was getting when people were fucking with me, like in the press or wherever, and I was just so mad because people have no idea what you went through to make this happen.
I didn't particularly like it either,
yeah.
To be honest with you.
But it's I do hear, the reason I asked Lou about the stigma is because I've been privy to conversations, and I know some of your friends, I don't know all of them. It's just so different now within the government because of how the Academy, To the Stars Academy, is handling the subject. It's just really cool. But before we move on, though, you asked me when I got into this. You went into running the UFO program at Department of Defense, and you weren't into UFOs.
No.
So what the hell happened? That must have been a pretty.
I was voluntold.
You got baptized.
Basically, hey, we need your help to do something. For me, there was little risk because I was being asked by the government to do something.
But I stepped in baby steps. Like I got into it. I read some books. I talk about the stuff. I go on the internet. You literally got brought into running the program. That's why I say baptism by fire. You know, that must have been
with a lot of good people. I had the backing of a lot of really good people on the team. I didn't do it alone. There were people there, senior people, that were professionals in their line of work, and it was a joint effort. Absolutely.
But the information download, like, did you like all of a sudden not sleep for like a week because you weren't even thinking about this subject, and boom, it's all on your desk? You're like, hold on a sec. You didn't have a slow indoctrination.
No, I didn't.
Just what was that like, I guess? That's the question I would have.
You know, for different people, it's different. Some people have a moment, an epiphany moment, where all of a sudden it's this aha realization that, oh my God, we're talking about UFOs. In other cases, some people have a slow, steady realization that we're talking about technology that we're not familiar with. And each person's a little differently. For me, it was probably a mixture of both. There was a point where I knew we were talking about something that wasn't ours and probably not foreign adversarial. But at the same time, you know, calm, steady approaches, I think, what needed. And I work in a line of work where everybody pretty much feels the same way. You're talking about people who are trained to solve problems in a methodical way, not jump to any conclusions.
Because you did a lot of other stuff besides this.
Yeah, we did a lot of stuff.
I think that's what people don't know too, is that obviously I wasn't able to know everything about your job, but I do know that you ran multiple programs, not just the UFO one. So you were primarily a form of a spy, a counterintelligence spy. I say that word because it's cool as shit, and I wish I was one. I feel like one sometimes.
No, you don't. Trust me.
But why would they choose that to run a UFO program? That's something that we've never heard you talk about, and that's something that always fascinated me, that the UFO program would be run by guys that are spies. And truthfully, there was somebody early on, long before I met you, that didn't know what my intentions were, and he was a spy too, and sat down with me and was like, "What are you doing? What's going on here?" You know, and that was the first time I go, "Wow, that's really interesting that this subject is with people that are trained like that."
Because intelligence is all about the art of finding answers to questions that you don't have an answer for, and so
that makes sense then.
Naturally, that would fall within intel.
But you also had engineers and physicists and stuff working with you.
We did, and they were like-minded as well. With that said, Tom, unfortunately, I'm going to have to shift gears here and start getting to some questions here from some of your fans.
Why?
Because you have a lot of fans, and they've got a lot of questions, and we promised we would get to some of these questions.
Why you guys have questions out there?
Nobody wants to hear about me. They want to hear about you.
You know what's so funny? You know that's not the truth. I'm just going to say everything I say used to be classified, and I'll tell you guys for the first time, and it'll make it much better and much cooler.
Tom, I have 2 daughters, and they will both tell you that I'm probably the most boring person in the world.
It's not true. I've seen your motorcycle. That gave you a lot of cool points. He's got this Russian-made motorcycle. I put it on Instagram with a sidecar, and it has not been changed since World War II, right?
The design is pretty consistent with the original.
It is the most pissed off machine I have ever been on. Soup?
But don't ride a motorcycle without a helmet. So let's start getting some questions here. Let's start with Ari from Seattle. Ari wants to know, if you could get an answer to any question, what would you ask?
You're not going to want me to answer that. We did. I'll tell you guys that how many times my team walks into my office, shuts the door, and says, "Look, don't be you, and don't say what you're really thinking all the time." Okay, but if I was, let me try and think about that. If I was going to ask any question, if I was to ask any question and get the answer to, God, I don't know. There's a lot of things. I'm trying to think of the tame question I would ask her. I think the question would be, how many, well, okay, I'll do this. I won't pretend this question is pointed towards any of the governments of the world. This is more just like a question I can present that will get an answer. And you keep handing me books. I'll do the books from now on. Because you're stressing me out here. I would ask.
You got a schedule to keep.
Yeah, I would ask how many types of visitors have been here throughout mankind's history. Even though it's short now, I have a feeling it's probably longer than we think, but I would like to know, we tend to think of UFO, so there's gotta be an occupant, so that's what it is. Who is that? I tend to think the universe is really big. It's probably gonna be much more complex of an answer. So I would like to know what it is and how many different versions of it it is.
Good.
Is that a good enough?
Interesting. Yeah. Ari, what do you think? Let's go with Melissa. Tom, and Melissa's from New York. Will you join in conversations with the quote-unquote ancient astronaut theorists?
Will I join in? The problem with the ancient astronaut stuff is they have a wonderful show on it, and I love the show as well, but as you know, they're not approaching it with a scientific method. So what it did was, unfortunately, make it a little bit harder to jump into the subject with those terms. And I think this is a question back at you, is because this is really me coming, when you came on board and when Jim Simovan from CIA came on board, it was really about, we have to stay academic and scientific because that is exactly what's needed for people to have a credible conversation. So what, my question to you is, why is that so important that we stick with just the very basic, because we can't prove everything scientifically, but when I think about the ancient astronaut thing, those terms bring up television.
Sure. I think, there's nothing wrong with beliefs. And, one of our colleagues says this all the time. There are 4 categories of information. Information that you know, information that you think, information that you believe, and information that you don't know. And all too many times, information on what you believe and information what you know gets confused. I think the more we can take speculation and innuendos and suppositions out of a calculus and just let the hard data and facts speak for themselves, the better. Ancient alien theorists could be absolutely correct. We're not saying they're wrong or they're right or anything else. What we're simply doing is trying to collect the data and allow that data to speak for itself, and then let everybody else make up their mind what that data means.
Well, you know what I want to do? So we had this conversation. One of the reasons I was so excited about the ability to take the company public and have people invest was I wanted to have the resources one day to send out our own archaeologists, our own geologists, our own groups of physicists and of every type of background. And I would love to send a team down to Antarctica. I would love to send a team over to the Middle East. And I would love for us to get into that conversation so we can actually support shows like Ancient Aliens, but with actual science. Right. I think that would be like, every time we hear something on the internet that's kind of weird and unusual, it's like people kind of, like sometimes there's these things like, hey, there might be a big hole up in the North Pole. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could dispatch a team up there to go dig and see this? I wanted this company to be like a big treasure hunt. I thought that would be so cool. And
just as important as proving something exists is also being able to prove that it doesn't exist, right? Yeah. So being able to go up and collect the facts and say, hey, look, the facts don't support.
I went out one time with a bunch of friends. We traveled up to Northern California.
This is G-rated, by the way. Just make sure we...
Okay, we'll keep this good. So I went out to go do a camping trip, and we decided to make it a Bigfoot trip. And what we proved was Bigfoot was not there. We proved that he was not where we were. So I thought it's kind of science, right?
Absolutely. Sure.
It's science, yeah.
Next question is from Joel. He's writing to us from Queensland. What would be a pivotal moment that you would say changed your life in your pursuit of UFOs and secret machines?
Oh my God. The most pivotal moment I had was sitting with a group of important people, and they asked me a bit about my project, and they said, what else do you need to get your project done? And I remember saying, well, I feel like I need a couple advisors in these areas because it seems like a pretty broad subject, and I want to make sure that I have everyone's permission or something like that. And I remember he looked at me and he said, he goes, do you ask your dad for permission after your mom's already given it to you? And I said, no, why? And he's all, you've been given permission, shut the fuck up and get to work. And I remember at that moment, I realized something I didn't realize yet, that I had the support of a lot of really important people. And now they're looking at me like, now go get your job done. And I remember the goosebumps I had, because all I wanted was these guys to kind of believe that I had a way in to the public with this. Didn't say it was gonna be easy, didn't know how long it would take, but that was the first moment that I felt like people supported me, that were more, you know, that held rank with this subject. So that was a big deal for me.
Interesting. Okay, Danielle. Oh, I'm sorry. Apologies, Daniel from Utah wants to know: pineapple on pizza, yes or no? Oh, really?
No, pizza's not made for vitamins and minerals. Like, they should actually have a process.
Fruit on it, right?
No,
Who puts fruit on pizza?
They should have a process to extract vitamins and minerals from a pizza,
Make
rather
it
than add
not
them
healthy.
on it,
Yeah, no. Keep your pineapples on ice cream and things like that, not on pizza. That's not American. That's just anti-American.
I believe, honestly, it's communist.
Yeah.
Pineapples in general.
So
It's a communist fruit. Actually, I like pineapple. Have you ever had pineapple in Hawaii? Like literally, like fresh.
it's super sweet. You need water afterwards.
It's so good. Yeah, it is crazy sweet. Glad we went over that.
So from F from Guaynabo, Puerto Rico. If you had a chance to ask an ET, presuming they exist, a question, what would that question be? Only one.
I would say, that's a really good question. I would ask, will you help us build our propulsion system? I would say, I would ask him how, we have some really interesting material at the company, and I would ask how is this made?
Would that question now, would that have been a different question a year ago?
Yeah. A year ago, I would have probably asked, like, who are you and where are you from? But now that the Academy is up and running, I really feel that this is like a deep, deep-seated passion of mine, that I really feel we have the ability to build a technology that's like what we observe. And that's Dr. Pudov's whole studies that he's been doing with you for 10 years, that he's been doing on his own for decades, the space-time metric, which is the bending and folding space-time, which is what everyone knows the Academy is after, with Steve Justice from Lockheed and all these other people that work here now. I think I would go, if ETs existed, I probably would go and ask him something very specific about our propulsion system versus, because I'm less interested now, I'm interested, but less so about like where you come from and what are you about. It's like, how do we build this? Like, because we know it's a revolutionary leap, and I believe that we can do this, but we definitely have so much more work to do.
Okay. This one is a little bit off topic, but I think probably still pretty interesting question. Matthew from Texas wants to know, what is your opinion, and this is definitely a question for you, what is your opinion on modern punk and pop punk music?
It's a good question. I think, over the years, punk music has, the better parts of it have merged with other types of music. So it's not so segregated anymore. It's not like, here's your punk bands, here's your hip hop bands. You kind of see things blending together. So it's not so much like these punk bands are good or not. I kind of look at music in a whole, where there's a segment of music where that idea of upsetting the apple cart and pushing back and having a voice and having some angst, I see that in other types of music. So my opinion is great as long as it's growing. If you hear a band literally doing the exact same thing as any other band, like right now, if I created a band to sound just like the Ramones, like why would I do that? The Ramones are like incredible and I'll never be as good as them. So why would I try to emulate them exactly? That's my feeling. So if there are pop punk bands that are doing that, I don't support that. I support them expressing their emotions, and I support them creating music however they want. But I've come to love the artistic challenge in writing music, and I think that the time for just doing it exactly like everybody else in the beginnings of this kind of music. I think that time has come and gone. I think now you got to challenge yourself a little bit more.
So originality.
Originality is important. I don't think it was that important in the beginning of punk music. I think it was all an emotional vehicle just to express yourself. But that has been done so many times. Originality is a form of emotional expression. It shows that you care. It shows that you're willing to challenge yourself to be heard. It shows that you're not uniform. And there's a lot of, the punk scene was all about not being like everybody else. So if you create a band that sounds exactly like another band, you're just being a lemming, you know, and that's the whole point of what not to be. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a phone call real quick from an individual you know. We're going to put him on speakerphone.
Yay.
This is Mr. Hartley.
AJ Hartley.
Yes.
How are you? So are we going to be, can they pick this up on the microphone? AJ, first of all,
Hey.
sorry you couldn't be here today, but how's the hurricane doing where you're at?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, it's the timing just sucked, unfortunately. It's not so bad, actually, at the moment. It moved a little west and a little south. I mean, we've had a lot of trees down, a lot of high winds yesterday, and it's been raining solidly all night. But the worst of it hasn't really hit yet. It's supposed to kick in the next couple of hours.
Oh, that's too bad.
Behind my house is up about
Well,
4 feet.
I hope that everything goes okay for you guys out there. We miss you out here, but this is a good opportunity for you to finally meet Lou, because I know your paths haven't really crossed yet.
Yeah.
But he's sitting here, right here next to me, and you know, this is really interesting because remember when we first started the Sekret Machines ride, it was just you and I. Then it expanded to some you know, military types, and then it expanded to a bunch of intelligence types, and then we got Lou, who actually ran the program. So this is a good time for you guys to even have a conversation about this stuff. So I think some of the people are going to want to ask questions and stuff, but I think you probably have a lot of questions too. But yeah, he's right here.
Mr. Hartley, it's a pleasure to meet you, albeit over phone. Hopefully the hurricane isn't impacting you and your state too bad. Obviously, reading the headlines, you know, deep sympathy for those individuals who've been affected by it. But I would like to ask you a quick question. How was it working with Tom on Sekret Machines?
How has it been?
Yeah, what's a little bit of a day in the life of Mr. Hartley and working with Sekret Machines?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting because I think Tom and I both have backgrounds as sort of artistic collaborators in different forms. Obviously, you know, for Tom it's music. For me, it's part writing because I've collaborated with people before, but it's also theater. I do a lot of, I mean, I'm directing now.
Oh.
And when you make a piece of theater, it's a lot of different people coming together and using their energies and their experience and their talents to, you know, contribute to the finished product. And you've got, and I'm often the director, so I'm sort of guiding it. But the trick, I think, is to sort of draw on people's strengths, and I think Tom recognizes that as well. So it's one of the reasons that I think we've worked well together is that he sort of says, you know, we talk, we brainstorm. So, you know, we want the story to address these issues and these concerns, and he'll send me research and information, and then he sort of turns me loose and says, okay, I mean, my job is to do the story stuff, you know.
Well, I think what's fascinating to a lot of people is that you and Tom work together and you both have the same common goal and vision. And I think that chemistry works really, really well. You know, what can I say? I think it's a really good. Obviously, you guys have really good chemistry, and I find it interesting from you as being an intellectual and Tom, of course, being a creative.
Not that.
That's not what I meant. But being so creative and of course your side being so intellectual, I think it's really neat to see that come together. And you know, you have something like this, Sekret Machines, that is wildly entertaining, but at the same time, you know, has a lot of basis in facts, which I think is really interesting.
Right, and that's where his side of stuff comes in. That he's the one sending me the research and saying, I think we need to talk about this. We think we need to talk about this, and not just Tom, but also, this book particularly was also influenced a lot by Jim Samivan and Hal Puthoff, who we had some sort of early conversations with about some of the themes and issues we wanted to deal with in the second book, because I think one of the difficulties when you do a series is that you want to maintain in the second book some of what people liked about the first book, but you don't want to just do the same thing, right?
Right.
You want it to be a new experience and going in different directions. And with this one, we wanted to explore more of the sort of the human side of these things. That Jim had said to me ages ago. It's like that he didn't think that sci-fi spent enough time thinking about what people might be like in the future. That they focused so much on technology and physical things that they didn't think about the human equation and human evolution and changes to the way people might, what they can do with their minds and things like that. And that became like a major through line for this book.
Fascinating. Well, Mr. Hartley, it's been a pleasure to meet you. And unfortunately, we have a rather tight schedule, and I'm sure you have lots of business to attend to given the hurricane. So we're going to let you go, but thank you sincerely for taking the time, speaking with us, and again, praying for you guys. Hopefully everything goes well with the hurricane, and stay safe, please.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, thanks, AJ. Bye.
Cheers, Tom.
Okay, now, Tom, what we're going to do is we're gonna play a little game, and I'm going to need two of these books because I'm going to put something up for the audience to see.
Okay.
I'm going to put up this is a stopwatch, and what we're going to do on camera, I'm going to ask you 22 questions, and you've got 2 minutes to answer, not each, all of them, and you can't know what these questions are in advance.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I got to use my noodle.
So
I got to be fast. I got to be quick.
here we go. Ready, set. Make sure I can do it. Okay. There we go. Where were you born?
San Diego.
Who would you want to play you in a movie?
Oh, Gwyneth Paltrow.
What was your first job?
Sorting fence fittings.
What is your biggest fear?
Satan.
Who makes you laugh the most?
Oh, that's a good question. Who makes me laugh the most? Myself.
What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Water.
What is the last concert you went to? You can't say your own.
Oh, man. What was the last concert I went to? U2? U2, okay.
Who is the most interesting person you met recently?
That's a good question. It would be someone at the government that I can't say.
What is your middle name?
Matthew.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
People chewing with their mouth open.
What is the last book you read?
A document that was channeled by somebody. Somebody thinks he got stuff channeled from space, and he wrote it all down. I forgot what it's called though.
What is your favorite hobby? This is G-rated, by the way.
Oh yeah, I have no other hobbies.
What is your guilty pleasure?
It's G-rated.
Do you have any hidden talents?
Yes. What are you doing? I can't answer any of these. No. Hidden talents? Yes. I like to draw. I don't know if that's hidden though.
What color is your toothbrush?
Right now it's purple and I feel weird about it.
What is your secret snack?
I like cubes of cheese on trays.
How do you take your coffee?
With cream and sugar.
What is the last movie you saw in theaters?
I took my son to see that one with the robot dog.
Stop. 2 minutes.
Did I do it?
No, but you got close.
How many did I answer?
You got to question number 19.
God, I was close.
And that is...
What were the last couple of questions?
Let's do number 20, even though we're going over time here. Just one more question. What cause is dear to your heart?
anything to do with children and illness. I think as being a dad, you can't look at sick kids ever. And
I mean, you've written children's books. I mean, that's
yeah,
obviously. I mean,
I'm passionate. Eternal youth. That was always the DNA in Blink 182.
You think you're going to have another kids book come out?
Maybe so, and maybe it will be here by Christmas. Where's Carrie? Did she hide? Yeah. Is it? Are we? Tess? Yeah. Maybe we will for Christmas. A different one.
Okay. Well, folks, I think I have been told that time to come to wrap this up. Thank you all for being here with us today, spending time with Tom and myself. Hopefully we got to answer some of your questions. There were a whole lot we didn't get to, so I do apologize. We didn't get a chance to go through all of them. There were a lot. A lot of them were very good, very insightful. Hopefully next time we'll get a chance to get to those questions for you.
Yeah, thank you guys for showing up. We have so many exciting things coming at To the Stars Academy. You asked me my biggest pet peeve. It's that I'm not allowed to talk about half of the stuff going on at the company because we have to have very specific, things set in stone with all these lawyers before I can announce things. But we have so many cool things happening, and it looks like all of our dreams of doing aerospace science and entertainment, it's all coming true. I am so excited for the future for us, but we will talk soon.
Sign these.
Shall do. Whose name? My name?
Yes.
All right.
No one wants mine.